What's going on, everybody? So I'm going to attempt to do this video with my roommates in the kitchen talking because I got about 7 minutes through the last video before they came in, so I'm starting over. So anyway, I wanted to do a quick update video on Penny, named after Kaylee Cuoco's character on The Big Bang Theory. She is 19 months old as of April 1st, and she is a Suriname red-tailed boa constrictor. So I got an updated measurement on her today, as well as weight, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about the food cycling that I started this past winter. So her updated weight was 22 ounces, and her length is roughly 43 and a half to 44 inches. And I was asked by someone the other day, like, aren't the BCC slower growers? And in general, boas are slow growers. Now, she's been properly fed since birth. I got the entire feeding history from her previous owner, as well as the Guyana. I got them both from this gentleman. And when I first got them, they were on adult mice every 2 weeks, and then I upgraded them to weaned rats every 2 weeks. Now she's currently on small rats every 17 to 20 days up until the summer, and she will be down to every 12 to 14 days for small rats for June, July, and August. And then next winter, she will be back to fasting again. Now, she's very well built compared to the Guyana. The Guyana is much leaner, not underweight, but just doesn't put on the mass like this girl does. She probably has the best body of all of my snakes. She's the one that I look to for the shape that I want all my boas. She's got that tall look with flat sides, very muscular, very lean. And depending on the individual snake this past winter, I did a few different things as far as their food cycling. The BI and this girl were both off food for 8 weeks. The Guyana, being leaner, I just reduced her food to once a month instead of twice a month. And then the Anaconda and the older Suriname were off food for 10 weeks. So this was initially suggested to me by a friend of mine who has been keeping boas for a long time, as long as I've known him. And he originally heard about food cycling from the Complete Boa Constrictor Guide book by Vincent Russo. So I wanted to learn more about it. I read a little bit about it, and then I spoke with my veterinarian. Now, the previous vet that I had was a reptile specialist, but he was giving me terrible advice. He was telling me to feed weekly for the young animals and twice a month for the older animals, no matter how big the prey was. So he was telling me I could feed jumbos every 2 weeks, and that's horrible advice. So I got this vet that I'm with now, and he has been working with boas in captivity and in the wild for 35 years. He started off to be a herpetologist, and he lived in South America for 2 years studying anacondas and other boas, and then he's also worked with large pythons. So I really hit the jackpot as far as finding him, because he knows more about boas than anyone I know. But I've also reached out to herpetologists on social media, and I've picked their brains. There's one gentleman who is a herpetologist and a zoologist, and he's in charge of a 16-foot, 165-pound anaconda, and she's beautiful. She's not obese. She is very muscular, very healthy, and he's also suggested the food cycling. So out of all the experts, like legitimate experts that I've talked to, they've all suggested doing the food cycling. So I incorporated it this year. Now, I have seen really good results. All of them grew during their fasting time, and I haven't gotten updated measurements on all of them, but the ones that I have, since I've reintroduced food to them again, they've all grown. I introduced food to her in mid-February, and she's grown about 1.5 inches since then. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on their growth rate. Eventually the plan is going to be from November until late February, early March. They're going to be off of food completely, but that'll be more when they're adults. And the reason for this basically is the dumbed down version of what I've heard from talking to the experts, is that our winter correlates with their dry season. Now, their dry season, food is not available like it is during the wet season. So a lot of times boas will eat as frequently as they can. Whenever they catch food, they're opportunistic eaters, but they will eat more during the wet season. And then during the dry season, they generally won't eat or will very rarely eat just because the food's not readily available. And what that does is it allows any excess fat pockets that are built up internally to be burned off. The problem is with boas, when they build up fat, it starts around the organs. It's called visceral fat. So you're not necessarily going to see it from the outside. And once you do start to see the fat rolls, there's usually considerable damage done, and it can shave decades off your animal's life. So this was really important to me to make sure that they are staying healthy. And I've seen a lot of really good results from it from other people, and the results I saw were phenomenal as well. So this is going to be something that I continue to do. Each animal, I had to look at them individually with their bodies and how they reacted. I stayed in touch with my vet the whole time. I did, wait twice a month and made sure that they were healthy. It did not change their disposition at all. It did not make them more quote unquote aggressive. I saw no change when handling them. I did lower the temperatures in the enclosure, as well as just pretty much took notes and updated my vet a couple times a month just to make sure everything was going smooth. So it's not something, I don't really have enough information to be able to give advice on it, but I'm just telling you what I did and how it was, how I was guided through it. So, a lot of people are, I guess, looking at old information. I see a lot of people trying to defend feeding jumbo rats multiple times a month, and everyone's aware of what power feeding is. And, everyone knows like, oh, well, I'm not power feeding. I'm not feeding them a jumbo rat every 6 days. I'm not feeding them 6 rats at once. They think of the blatantly obvious power feeding, but people don't think about just regular overfeeding as much. Based on the experts that I've talked to, they've all said the same thing, and that's that 80 to 90% of the boas they see in captivity are overfed. And this isn't 1 or 2 people. I mean, this is 5 or 6 people that spend their lives devoted to these animals that have said this. And I don't want to be one of those people. So I've had discussions with people, and, you get the same thing. Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been feeding my boas jumbo rats every 10 days, and she's doing just fine. Look at her. And that's great, but here's the problem. I can point at Ozzy Osbourne, who's been doing drugs his entire life and drinking, but that doesn't mean that because he's still alive that everyone should do the same thing as him. It's just not the way it works. So pointing at a couple animals that are still alive doesn't mean that that's the best thing that you should be doing. And I feel like a lot of people will get defensive. They're not willing to change because they've been doing something for so long. And that's, in my opinion, a huge problem. I'm always willing to change. If someone can provide evidence to show me that I'm doing something wrong, my animal's health is the most important thing to me. So I'm not going to put up a wall and say that, oh, you're wrong. I'm going to do research, and I'm not just going to take you at your word, but I'm going to go look stuff up, and I'm going to find out if what I'm doing is detrimental to my animal. My pride is not more important than my animals, and no one's should be. Things that we were doing 20 years ago might not be considered the right thing to do now, because as science progresses, as we learn more, as we investigate, as our tools get better, sometimes things change. It's not the best thing to do to get defensive just because you don't want to admit that something was wrong. Like, everybody makes mistakes, every single person. The important thing is to realize it and make the changes for the health of our babies. So anyway, that was my soapbox moment. Again, she's 19 months, 43 inches, 22 ounces. Food cycling has gone wonderful for her. I'll be doing some more update videos on the other girls as time progresses, but if you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me in the comment section. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I apologize for the shaky camera. I haven't drank in like 5 years, so it's just, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I really can't hold stuff still, so I apologize for that. But thanks for checking it out, guys, and don't forget, ask questions if you got them. All right, be safe.